The rain came down like angry fists on the windows of the big, white mansion. Inside, Richard Hale stood in his office, his face red with anger. Grace stood across from him, her hands shaking. "You gave her cookies before dinner again," Richard shouted. "I told you the rules." Grace's voice was soft but firm. "She's just a little girl, Mr. Hale. She was hungry. I don't pay you to think. I pay you to follow my orders." Lightning flashed outside. Thunder shook the walls. 6-year-old Lily sat on the stairs, hugging her knees, listening to the yelling. She hated when Daddy shouted at Grace. Grace was the only person who read her bedtime stories. Grace was the only person who laughed with her. "You're fired." Richard's voice echoed through the house. "Pack your things and leave tonight." Grace's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't argue. She knew Richard Hale always got his way. He was the richest man in the city. He owned buildings and cars and companies. But he didn't know how to own a little girl's heart. Grace walked up the stairs. Lily jumped up and grabbed her hand. "Don't go, Grace. Please don't go." Grace knelt down and hugged Lily tight. "I have to, sweet girl. But I'll always remember you. Take me with you," Lily whispered. Grace looked into Lily's big brown eyes. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. But her heart broke when she thought about leaving this child alone in this cold, empty house with a father who never smiled. "Just for tonight," Grace whispered back. "Just so we can say goodbye properly. We'll go on an adventure, and I'll bring you back in the morning." "Okay." Lily nodded fast, her eyes shining. An hour later, Grace's old blue car rolled down the dark driveway. Lily sat in the back seat, wearing her pink raincoat, holding her stuffed rabbit. Rain pounded on the roof like a drum. Grace's hands gripped the steering wheel. Her heart beat fast. What had she done? She'd taken Richard Hale's daughter, without asking. But she'd bring her back. She would. She just needed one night to figure out her life. One night to say a real goodbye. "Where are we going?" Lily asked. "To my sister's house in Greenfield," Grace said, trying to smile. "She makes the best pancakes. You'll love her." "Will Daddy be mad?" Grace's stomach twisted. "I'll call him in the morning. Don't worry, sweetheart." But worry lived in Grace's chest like a stone. The road curved through the dark forest. Rain made the windshield blur. Grace turned on the wipers, but they only smeared the water around. She could barely see. Then she saw the headlights. Bright. Too bright. Coming straight at her. "Grace!" Lily screamed. Grace yanked the wheel. The car spun. The tires screamed. The world flipped upside down. Metal crunched. Glass exploded. Everything went black. When Grace opened her eyes, she tasted blood. Her head throbbed. Rain poured through the broken window onto her face. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily." She turned her head. Pain shot through her neck. The back seat was empty. The door hung open. "Lily." Grace tried to move, but her leg was trapped. She pushed and pulled and screamed Lily's name into the storm. Then she heard footsteps, crunching on broken glass. A man appeared at her window. He was tall and thin, wearing a black coat. His face was hidden in shadows. "Help me," Grace gasped. "My daughter, the little girl, she's gone. Please find her." The man crouched down. His voice was calm and cold. "I found the girl. She's alive. Barely. Oh, thank God. Where is she?" "Call an ambulance." "I'll make you a deal," the man said. Grace's blood turned to ice. "What?" "The girl is Richard Hale's daughter, isn't she? I've seen her picture in the papers. Rich man's only child. Please," Grace begged. "She needs a doctor." The man pulled out a phone and showed Grace a photo. Lily lay in the mud, her eyes closed, blood on her forehead. "I can save her," the man said. "Or I can leave her here in the rain. Your choice." "Save her. Please. Then you'll do exactly what I say. You won't tell anyone she's alive. You won't go to the police. You'll disappear, and you'll send me money every month. If you don't, I'll tell everyone you kidnapped Richard Hale's daughter. You'll go to prison forever." Grace couldn't breathe. "Who are you?" "My name is Harold. And you just became my prisoner. Harold leaned closer. Here's what happens next. I take the girl to a hospital far away, under a fake name. She'll live, but she won't remember you or her rich daddy. You'll vanish like smoke. If Richard Hale comes looking, you'll tell him nothing. If you break our deal, the girl disappears for real. Do you understand? Tears poured down Grace's face. Yes. Good. Harold stood up. An ambulance is coming for you. When they ask about the girl, say she ran into the woods. Say you couldn't find her. Say you don't know where she went. Please take care of her, Grace sobbed. Harold smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. I'll take care of her as long as you pay me. Then he was gone, swallowed by the storm. Grace lay in the rain, her heart shattered into a million pieces. She heard sirens in the distance. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees. When the ambulance men came, she told them exactly what Harold said. The girl, she ran into the woods. I couldn't find her. They searched all night. Dogs sniffed the mud. Flashlights cut through the dark. But they never found Lily. Back at the mansion, Richard Hale got the phone call at midnight. Mr. Hale? This is the police. There's been an accident. Richard's whole body went cold. Where's my daughter? We don't know, sir. The driver says she ran into the forest. We're still searching. Richard dropped the phone. He fell to his knees. And for the first time in 20 years, Richard Hale cried. He cried because he'd been cruel. He cried because he'd yelled instead of hugged. He cried because the last thing he'd done was fire the only person his daughter loved. Outside, lightning split the sky. Inside, a father's heart broke like glass. And somewhere in the dark, wet forest, Harold carried a little girl toward a car, whispering promises no one should ever make. The silver watch on Lily's wrist kept ticking. Tick-tock, tick-tock, even when everything else had stopped. 1 year later, Richard Hale sat alone in his giant mansion. The house felt like a tomb. Every room echoed with memories of Lily's laughter, but now there was only silence. The police had searched for 3 months. They'd used dogs and helicopters and divers in the lake. They found nothing. No body, no clothes, no trace of his little girl. Finally, they told Richard what he already knew in his heart. She's gone, Mr. Hale. We're sorry. They held a funeral with an empty coffin. Hundreds of people came. They said things like, so sorry for your loss, and she's in a better place now. But Richard didn't hear them. He just stared at the tiny white coffin and wished he could go back in time. He wished he could take back every angry word. He wished he'd given Lily cookies whenever she wanted. He wished he'd read her bedtime stories instead of working late. He wished he'd been a real father instead of a boss. But wishes don't bring back the dead. Richard stopped going to his office. He stopped answering phone calls. He fired all the servants except one old gardener who didn't talk much. The mansion filled with dust and shadows. Every night, Richard sat in Lily's bedroom. He touched her stuffed animals. He opened her closet and smelled her dresses. He wound up the music box that played her favorite song. And every week, he visited the cemetery. The gravestone was white marble with gold letters. Lily Hale, beloved daughter, gone too soon. Richard brought yellow flowers every time. Yellow was Lily's favorite color. He'd kneel in the grass and talk to her. I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm so sorry. Daddy was mean. Daddy was stupid. If you can hear me, please forgive me. But the stone never answered. People in the city whispered about him. Poor Richard Hale, they said. All that money, but he couldn't save his daughter. Now he's gone crazy with grief. They were right. Grief had swallowed Richard whole. He walked through his days like a ghost, alive but not really living. The only thing he kept from Lily's room was a wooden horse he'd bought her for her 6th birthday. He'd never given it to her because she'd disappeared the night before her party. Now he carried it everywhere, rubbing its smooth mane like a prayer. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Time moved forward, but Richard stayed frozen in the worst night of his life. Far away, in a tiny apartment in a city called Riverside, a woman named Maya worked 3 jobs. But Maya wasn't her real name. Her real name was Grace. Grace had changed everything about herself. She cut her long brown hair short and dyed it black. She wore glasses she didn't need. She never smiled. She looked over her shoulder everywhere she went. Because Harold was always watching. Every month, an envelope arrived at her door with a single word written on it. Payment. Grace worked as a waitress in the morning, cleaned offices at night, and delivered groceries on weekends. Every penny she made went into that envelope. $500. Every single month. If she was late, Harold called. His voice was always calm and cold. Remember our deal, Grace. I know where the girl is. One wrong move, and she disappears forever. Grace wanted to scream. She wanted to go to the police. She wanted to tell Richard the truth. But every time she thought about it, fear wrapped around her throat like hands. What if Harold was lying? What if Lily was already dead? What if going to the police made everything worse? So Grace stayed silent. She paid. She disappeared. But at night, lying in her creaky bed, Grace whispered prayers. Please let her be alive. Please let her be safe. Please let her remember she was loved. Grace didn't know if God heard prayers from cowards, but she prayed anyway. In a children's hospital 3 hours away, a girl with scars on her face sat by a window. The nurses called her Leah. They said she'd been found in the woods a year ago, hurt and alone, with no memory of who she was or where she came from. The doctors said the crash had stolen her past. Leah knew 3 things about herself. 1. She was 7 years old. 2. She loved yellow flowers, though she didn't know why. 3. She had a silver watch that didn't work anymore, but she wore it every day because it felt important. Sometimes, Leah dreamed. In her dreams, a kind woman read her stories. A big house with white walls. A man's voice, loud and angry.
Rain.
Screaming. Then nothing. She'd wake up crying, and the nurses would hug her and say, "It's okay, Leah. You're safe now." But Leah didn't feel safe. She felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. She felt like she belonged somewhere else, with someone else, but she couldn't remember where or who. The hospital became her home. The nurses became her family. She went to school in a little classroom with other sick children. She drew pictures of houses and flowers and a wooden horse she'd never seen but somehow remembered. Harold visited once a month. He brought her candy and called himself Uncle Harold. The nurses thought he was kind, but Leah felt cold whenever he came near. Something about his smile made her want to hide. "Have you remembered anything, Leah?" Harold always asked. Leah always shook her head. "No, Uncle Harold." "Good," he'd say, patting her head. "The past doesn't matter. Only the future." But the past did matter. Leah felt it in her bones. Every time she looked at her watch, she heard a man's voice saying, "I'll always find you, baby girl. Just follow the ticking."
Whose voice was it?
Why did it make her cry?
Tick-tock. Tick-tock.
The broken watch couldn't tell time, but it whispered secrets Leah couldn't understand. Then one morning, everything changed. Grace was cleaning an office building when she found a newspaper in the trash. She almost threw it away, but a headline caught her eye. Hale Memorial Fund donates $1 million to Children's Hospital. Grace's hands shook. She read faster. Richard Hale, the billionaire who lost his daughter Lily in a tragic accident, has donated $1 million to Riverside Children's Hospital in her memory. "I couldn't save my daughter," Hale said, "but maybe I can save other children." Riverside Children's Hospital. That was this city. Grace's city. Her heart pounded. Could it be? Could Lily be there? Harold said he'd taken Lily to a hospital far away. But what if far away meant right here? What if she'd been close this whole time? Grace stared at the newspaper until her vision blurred. Hope, dangerous and bright, bloomed in her chest. She had to know. Even if it was crazy. Even if it was dangerous. She had to know. That night, Grace put on her old coat and walked to the hospital. Her legs felt like water. Her breath came in gasps. The hospital lobby was bright and clean. A nurse at the desk smiled. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for a girl," Grace whispered. "She's 7. She was found a year ago. No memory. She might have scars. The nurse's smile faded. We have a patient like that.
Leia.
But visiting hours are over, and she doesn't have family, except her uncle. Grace's world tilted. Uncle. Harold. Can I just see her? Grace begged. Just through a window? Please. The nurse hesitated, then pointed down a hallway. Room 304. But don't disturb her. Grace ran. Her shoes squeaked on the shiny floor. She found room 304 and pressed her face to the small window in the door. And there she was. Lily. Older.
Thinner.
A scar above her eyebrow. But unmistakably, impossibly, beautifully Lily. Grace's knees buckled. She slid down the wall, sobbing into her hands.
Alive.
Lily was alive. But Grace couldn't go in. She couldn't take Lily home. Because Harold owned them both. One word to the police, and Harold would make them both disappear. Grace stumbled out of the hospital, her heart breaking and mending at the same time. She had to tell Richard. She had to, even if it meant prison. Even if it meant Harold's revenge. Richard deserved to know his daughter was alive. Tomorrow, Grace decided. Tomorrow, she'd find the courage. But when she got home, an envelope waited on her doorstep. Inside was a photo of Lily sleeping and a note in Harold's handwriting. I know you found her. Don't be stupid, Grace. Walk away, or we all lose. Grace crumpled to the floor, the photo clutched to her chest.
Trapped.
She was trapped.
Tick-tock. Tick-tock.
Time was running out. But for what? Grace didn't know. The sun rose on a Sunday morning, bright and warm. Richard Hale put on his black coat and picked up the wooden horse from his desk. Today marked exactly 1 year since Lily's funeral. 1 year of visiting an empty grave. 1 year of talking to a daughter who couldn't hear him. He drove to the cemetery in his black car, the same car he'd bought to impress people who didn't matter. Now it just felt empty. The cemetery was quiet. Birds sang in the trees. Flowers bloomed along the paths. It was too beautiful for a place of death. Richard walked slowly to Lily's grave. His shoes crunched on the gravel. His heart felt heavy as stone. The white marble headstone gleamed in the sunlight. Someone had left fresh yellow flowers. Richard frowned. Who else remembered Lily? Who else cared? He knelt on the grass and placed the wooden horse beside the flowers. His hands shook. Happy birthday, baby girl, he whispered. You'd be 7 today. I bought you this horse for your 6th birthday, but I never got to give it to you. I was too busy being angry about stupid things. Too busy being a terrible father. His voice cracked. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I'd give everything to have one more day with you. Just 1 day. I'd let you eat cookies for breakfast. I'd read you every story in the world. I'd tell you, I love you 1,000 times. I'd be the daddy you deserved. Richard pressed his forehead against the cold stone. His shoulders shook with sobs. The richest man in the city, crying like a broken child. I'm so sorry, Lily. Please forgive me. Please. He didn't hear the footsteps behind him. Leia stood behind a big oak tree, watching the crying man. Her heart beat fast. Something about him felt familiar. The way he moved. The sound of his voice. Like a song she'd forgotten, but her body still remembered. The nurses had brought her to the cemetery today. It's good to visit peaceful places, they'd said. Maybe it will help you remember. But Leia hadn't expected to see him. The man from her dreams. The man with the loud voice. She stepped closer, her hand touching the watch on her wrist.
Tick-tock. Tick-tock.
Even though it was broken, she swore she could hear it ticking. Then she saw the name on the gravestone. Lily Hale. Lily. That word made her chest hurt. That word made her want to cry. Lily, she whispered, testing the sound. It felt right. It felt like coming home. She looked at the crying man again. And suddenly she knew. She just knew.
Daddy.
The word came out small and scared, but it cut through the air like lightning. Richard's head snapped up. He turned around, his face wet with tears. His eyes went wide. A girl stood 20 feet away. 7 years old. Brown hair. A scar above her eyebrow. Wearing a silver watch. Richard couldn't breathe,
Couldn't think.
couldn't move. Lily, he whispered. The girl took a step forward. Then another. I don't remember everything. But I remember your voice. You used to say, follow the ticking, baby girl. Richard's whole body trembled. He stood up slowly, afraid she'd disappear if he moved too fast. You're alive. You're alive. Oh God, you're alive. My name's Leia now, she said. But I think I used to be Lily. Richard fell to his knees and opened his arms. Lily ran to him. They crashed together, holding each other like the world might tear them apart again. I'm sorry, Richard sobbed into her hair. I'm so sorry. I forgive you, Daddy, Lily whispered.
She didn't know why she said it.
But it felt true. They stayed like that for a long time, two broken pieces becoming whole again. Well, isn't this touching? Richard and Lily looked up. A tall, thin man in a black coat stood at the edge of the graves. His smile was cruel. Harold. Who are you? Richard demanded, standing up and pulling Lily behind him. I'm the man who saved your daughter's life, Harold said. And the man who's been keeping her safe. For a price. Richard's eyes narrowed. You kidnapped her. I rescued her from a crash and gave her to a hospital. I could have left her to die in the rain. I think I deserve a reward for my kindness, don't you? How much do you want? Richard's voice was ice. Harold laughed. $1 million. Or I tell the police that Grace kidnapped Lily. She'll go to prison. The girl will end up in foster care, and you'll never see her again. Your choice, rich man. Before Richard could answer, another voice rang out. No more. Grace stepped out from stories that will make you feel, think, and believe in second chances. Your support means everything. See you in the next story. Behind another tree. Her face was pale but determined. She'd been watching the whole time, too afraid to approach. But now she couldn't hide anymore. Grace! Lily shouted, breaking free from Richard. She ran to Grace and hugged her tight. I remember you. You read me stories. Grace's tears fell like rain. She held Lily and couldn't let go. Harold's smile vanished. Grace, don't be stupid. I'm done being stupid, Grace said. Her voice shook, but she didn't back down. I'm telling the truth. All of it. You blackmailed me. You threatened a child. You're going to prison, Harold. Harold's hand went to his pocket. Richard saw the movement and stepped forward. Don't even think about it. Richard pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. Right now. Harold's face twisted with rage. He turned and ran, disappearing into the cemetery like a shadow. Richard made the call. Within minutes, police cars arrived, sirens wailing. Officers searched the cemetery and found Harold hiding behind a crypt. They dragged him away in handcuffs, screaming threats that no one listened to. Later, sitting on a bench in the warm sunshine, Richard, Grace, and Lily told their stories to the police. Every word, every secret, every terrible choice. The detective listened carefully, then closed his notebook. Miss Grace, you made mistakes. But you were afraid for the child's safety. And you've been a victim of extortion. I don't think charges are necessary. Grace's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. The detective looked at Richard. Mr. Hale, your daughter is alive. That's what matters now. Richard nodded. He couldn't stop staring at Lily, afraid she'd vanish if he looked away. When the police left, the three of them sat together in the golden afternoon light. Nobody spoke for a while. There were too many feelings, too many words. Finally, Lily broke the silence. Can I go home now? To the White House. Richard's voice was gentle. Only if you want to, sweetheart. And only if Grace comes too. Lily looked at Grace. Will you? Grace's eyes filled with fresh tears. If your father will have me. I'm begging you, Richard said. I can't do this alone. She needs you. I need you. Please come home. Grace nodded, too emotional to speak. Lily smiled. It was the first real smile any of them had felt in a year. Then let's go home. All of us. Together. They walked to Richard's car, hand in hand in hand. A father, a daughter, and the woman who'd loved them both enough to suffer in silence. Behind them, the gravestone stood empty, but no longer sad. The yellow flowers brightened in the breeze. The wooden horse sat beside them, a promise kept at last. And on Lily's wrist, the silver watch that had stopped ticking one terrible night began to tick again.
Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
The sound of time moving forward. The sound of a family healing. The sound of hope. 3 months later, the white mansion was full of light again. Lily's laughter echoed through the halls. Grace cooked cookies whenever Lily wanted them. Richard came home early every day to read bedtime stories. They visited the cemetery once more, together. They brought yellow flowers and sat on the grass, talking about the past without fear. "Should we take down the gravestone?" Grace asked quietly. Richard shook his head.
No.
"It reminds us of what we almost lost. It reminds us to never take each other for granted again." Lily touched the wooden horse, now worn smooth from being held so many times. "It's okay to remember sad things, as long as we make happy things too." Richard and Grace looked at each other, amazed at the wisdom in such a small person. "You're right, baby girl," Richard said, kissing the top of her head. "You're absolutely right." They walked home through the sunny cemetery, a family rebuilt from ashes. Not perfect, still scarred, but together. And that was enough. Because love, real, messy, imperfect love, doesn't die just because you make mistakes. It waits. It forgives. It fights its way back home. Even when the whole world says it's impossible. Even when the grave is empty. Even when the watch has stopped. Love finds a way. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to make things right. And subscribe for more.